What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I am bringing you an updated Madolche deck profile for the new format. And so many things have changed since my last profile. Like, the format's entirely different, right? But I just uploaded like a deck theory video as well as like some combo videos, and there's a big thing this format that wasn't affecting this deck in the previous video. Which is the fact that Scythe is such a huge problem in this current metagame, and this deck can't run some of the very common outs that I really like to play to counter Artifact Scythe, which means you have to kind of get creative, and I'm going to show you in this profile how we're sort of adjusting some cards that I would normally play to out the threats of this format for other things, so definitely stay tuned for that. If you do like Madolche, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, it really helps out what we do here on the channel, and of course, if you like Madolche and want to see our future Madolche content, you want to make sure you're subscribed and following the channel so you don't miss a beat. Also, Discord down below if you are looking for a Yu-Gi-Oh community where you can hang out with friends, maybe play Master Duel, or just talk about Yu-Gi-Oh in general. We do have a Discord you can check out below. It's been gaining a good amount of members recently and becoming more lively and just a place that's a lot of fun. So if that does sound interesting to you, Discord link down below. Alright, without further ado, let's get into this Madolche deck profile. Alright, so starting off, the list is 41 cards, and that's actually, less than my last Madolche list. I was running 42 previously. At least in one of my lists, I think in the deck profile like theory video. But starting off with our Madolche monsters, we're going to start off with our triple Madolche. You essentially have 9 starters in Madolche, but the weird thing about this deck is starters aren't always starters, which is why there's been some cards in recent times that have made this deck so much better. Madolche is one of your strongest starters. It's like one of your highest ceiling starters because she puts an extra body on field by the time you're going for your Petting Cessor combo, so she is a very impactful starter and one you definitely want to see, especially with Madolche Salon. Then we have the 3 Angeli. Angeli is my personal favorite starter in the deck because she doesn't care about your graveyard, which is super important for Madolche. One of Madolche's biggest problems is the fact that certain starters are not starters based on how many cards are in your graveyard, specifically how many monsters are in your graveyard. So cards like Madolche Angeli that will full combo regardless of your graveyard status are very, very powerful. Next, we have the 3 Madolche Petting Cessor. Now, this is the card that probably has the most power in the deck, and the reason that Madolche is such a good starter in the first place is because Petting Cessor is such a powerful card. If you have 0 monsters in your graveyard, she can special summon herself, and then when she special summon, you can special summon a Madolche monster from your deck with 1 level less than its actual level. So this is super good, and that is the reason we are also pairing her with the Pudding Cess. You do have to play the 1 Pudding Cess because it's so important for your Chocolate a la mode, and of course your Petting Cessor because Pudding Cess will come out as a level 4. This is the reason Madolche's even a starter in the first place, right? Because you can search Petting Cessor and just special summon her from your hand, and then just go full Madolche combo, which is very, very good. So these are like your 9 Madolche starters, of course with the 1 Pudding Cess that is sort of the brick for your Petting Cessor, and these are like your 9 main starters, which is not a terrible amount of starters, but we do have more Madolche monsters that also can fill this role, and that is the 2 Madolche Hoot Cake. Now, Hoot Cake is another one of the starters like Petting Cessor that he's really only a starter if you have a monster in your graveyard, because to activate, he requires that you have a monster in your graveyard to banish for his effect. But he is an important part of your combo, as well as the 2 Messengelato. This is the card that is the most annoying card in Madolche because you really do not want to draw him. If you start with like Petting Cessor, then you can actually like normal summon Messengelato and put him back in your combo. But it's still just like a card you don't want to see, but you do have to run at least 2 because you want to combo. Like if you draw 1, you wouldn't be able to combo like you want to, so we need to have a second one in the deck. And of course, when you can resolve 2 Messengelato, it's very, very good. I think like this Madolche ratio, the 10 previous Madolches and these both at the ratio of 2, is a pretty standard Madolche lineup and one you see in many lists. So it's pretty standard, and I think it's just like the golden ratio. Alright, so next up we have the 1 Pankratops, and we are main decking Pankratops for Small World. He's a very good link for all your Madolche monsters because he's Earth, but I'll explain more of the Madolche links that work with Small World once we get to it. But yeah, Pankratops is just a fantastic card. He's really good at breaking boards, and he's a card I search with Small World a lot because there's actually ways to search him, not just use him as a bridge. And he can just dismantle boards really easily. He's just very powerful. Alright, so now we're going to go through the hand traps. And the hand traps from Madolche always look a little weird, and there's a couple of reasons that I will explain as we go. We're on 1 Herald of Orange Light, 1 Effect Veiler, and then to make up for the other Effect Veilers, or really to make up for the 3rd Impermanence, we're running the Veiler. But we're on 2 Infinite Impermanence to go with our Effect Veiler for 3 Spot Negates, and we are on 3 Nibiru. So a big thing for Madolche is you don't want monsters hitting your graveyard, which means you cannot run a lot of the standard hand traps you'd really like Ash Blossom, or especially DD Crow. DD Crow is a huge one this format because I absolutely love playing it as a counter to Artifact Scythe. I think DD Crow is one of the best cards this format, period. And Madolche really cannot play it because it shuts off Magdalene and Petincessor as a starter if you were to use DD Crow. So we're playing hand traps that don't really go to grave, like the Infinite Impermanences and the Nibirus. But then there are the Herald of Orange Light and Effect Veiler, which are not only very good as bridges with Small World, like you can Nibiru into Effect Veiler to search Magdalene, for example. Again, more links when we get to Small World. But these cards, once you're already established, are super good because they are non-once per turn hand traps that can be abused with your Souffle plus Chateau, which is very, very powerful, and it's an interaction I want. Like, if you're able to go full combo and then search Herald of Orange Light, it's very, very good. So yeah, this is the hand trap lineup here. We're not on Ash like we were in our previous build. Again, we just want to run more cards that stop Scythe now, and I'm opting to run more cards that stop Scythe in the spell lineup. And I just didn't want another monster that we put in our graveyard. Hand traps, again, are really weird for Madolche. You can run Gamma, but I personally do not have space for it. In this list, we're already at 41 cards. This is our current hand trap lineup. It's only 7 cards, but we have a lot more Go Second cards in the list to complement them. Alright, starting off with the spells, we have our consistency spells. We have the 3 Pot of Prosperity. This card is absolutely amazing in Madolche because we only have like 9 starters, and the starters, well, technically if you count Hoot Cake, we have 11, but the starters are not always starters, as I've previously mentioned, and Pot of Prosperity helps you sort of pick and choose which card is useful for your current like game state. Like, say you drop Nibiru, a hand trap that normally doesn't go to graveyard, but they follow up like Fusion Destiny and pop the Nibiru, and now suddenly, because of that, Petincessor is not a starter, right? You can Prosperity for like a Small World, which will turn Petincessor into a starter like Hoot Cake or Angeli, or you can just find those cards off of this, right? And like vice versa, you know, if you don't have a monster in grave and you have Hoot Cake, you can like search for Petincessor, right? So it's one of the best ways to see your important starters, and with the addition of Small World in the deck, you have a lot more cards you can hit off of Prosperity that are very, very good. But if you already draw a combo, something you really want to do in Madolche is see both a Madolche starter plus a Madolche spell like Salon, because then your end board can get really wild and you just put yourself so far ahead in the game. So Prosperity really helps with the 2 card combos of the deck as well. However, I know not everyone has Prosperity. It's a very expensive card right now, so you can substitute this with like really good extra hand traps, like maybe more Orange Lights. You can also run more trap cards, like a Madolche trap I'm not playing. You can substitute this for a lot of different things like those, just more hand traps or more traps. You can also play Extravagance, but your extra deck will have to be very different, so do that as you will. Next up, we have the 3 Small World. So this card is one of the best Madolche support cards we have gotten in a long time. I think this card alone boosted this deck up like so much higher on the power rankings. Not like any official power rankings exist, but what I'm saying is it made the deck a lot better. This card helps with the consistency so much because of Madolche's inherent problem with some of your starters not being starters. It just helps the deck immensely, and this makes your deck so much more consistent, which was always one of Madolche's problems. This is a fantastic card, and there's a lot of really cool links and bridges that I will now go over. Alright, so one of the main things in the deck is Pankratops. We are main decking Pankratops almost just as a bridge. It's a very good card that you can search, which is important to note. Just in case you're like playing against a backer deck or really need to. But Pankratops can bridge any 2 Madolches in the deck. Like, we can turn Hoot Cake into a Petincessor if we wanted to. As mentioned before, sometimes you don't have a monster in grave, so, you know, Hoot Cake's not a starter, but Petincessor is, so you can Small World Hoot Cake into Pankratops, and they only match up being Earth. There's no other stats match, and you can match Pankratops to Petincessor because none of their stats match except for being Earth. So any 2 Madolche monsters can be linked through Pankratops, which is really important. Another one that you can sort of use is opening Nibiru. Obviously going first, Nibiru isn't a starter. So Small World can link to Effect Veiler, and these both match up being only light monsters. And Effect Veiler can link to Madolche because they are both spellcasters. But if you happen to draw like Effect Veiler, you can actually link to Herald of Orange Light, and you can link to something like Petincessor because they only match up being fairy. So Nibiru only matches to Orange Light being a light monster, and Petincessor only matches by being a fairy. So the links are very good there. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other things you can do, is like Madolche into Effect Veiler to search Pancratops. There are so many links you can do with this deck, and it's one of the reasons Small World is really good. You can essentially find anything you want off of this card, and they're really important cards. Like, that's what I meant by searching Orange Light after you finish your combo. You can, like, have Effect Veiler, turn it into Nibiru, and then add Herald of Orange Light. Or you could take, like, a Hoot Cake, turn it into Petincessor, and then add Orange Light that way. So there's a bunch of ways to search hand traps afterwards as well, and that is one of the reasons this card is absolutely fantastic for the deck. Alright, next up for the Madolche spells, we have the 3 Salon, sort of the most powerful Madolche spell. This card is so good for the deck, and you can choose between playing 3 or 2 of it. One issue with the Madolche spells is how they can brick sometimes. Like, if you see them without a play, they don't do anything, and that stinks. But we are running, you know, 3 Small World, 3 Prosperity, maximizing our starters. So we're playing the deck as consistent as it can be. And Salon is part of that. Opening Salon is so powerful, and it's just one of the best cards in the deck to help play around interruptions or set up your board. So I did want to maximize it in this list, and it helps with some of the cards we are side decking. And of course, we are on the obligatory 1 Chateau and 1 Ticket. These are just part of your combos. These are fantastic cards, but again, the Madolche spells are bricks. So the only one we're maximizing is the one that helps us play, being Salon, while these we're just searching off of Messengelato to use their advantage as we so need. Of course, Chateau is part of your main combo. You need it to shuffle back to proc your Chocolate a la mode once again. But yes, very important cards to run. You can run like 5 or 4 of these. I wouldn't really go above 5 Madolche spells though. So sort of a cause for the format is 3 Cosmic Cyclone, and this is what like the Ash Blossom came out for. And some of my other flex choices I was running is the 3 Cosmic. Artifact Scythe is a huge problem in this format, and one of the best ways to get him on your board is to use Artifact Dagda to set him and then pop him with Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. So Cosmic Cyclone is an easy way to banish the Artifact Scythe so that you are not locked out by it. Cosmic Cyclone is also very good this format because Skill Drain came off the list to 3, right? So Cosmic Cyclone can help you versus the back row decks, the Eldritch matchup, as well as just being very good versus Artifact Scythe. So Cosmic Cyclone, one of the most powerful cards in the format, and it's something I wanted to maximize. Normally I like to run this and 3DD Crow. Because of the Brave engine, oftentimes you need 2 outs to Artifact Scythe if you really want to stop him. One to negate the Griffin, or one to bait the Griffin negate, and one to actually deal with the Scythe. But this deck, again, can't really run DD Crow, so we are on the 3 Cosmic Cyclone. And we are on 2 Forbidden Droplet. This card is obviously very good for stopping Scythe, but one problem with Droplet in this deck is you cannot really send a monster for Droplet, which makes it so weird. Of course, you can send a monster for Droplet if you have Angeli or Hoot Cake. In fact, Droplet can make some of your weird hands playable in this sense. But yeah, you don't want to always be sending a monster with Droplet, which makes it a little weird in this deck. Because you might have it get negated more often than you would like, which something Droplet isn't used to is getting negated, but I think this card is still fantastic, and in the hands where you open like Angeli, it's still worth being able to just break the monster boards that are normally impossible to break, so still want to be on 2 Forbidden Droplet. 1 Called by the Grave, I mean, of course we're playing this. It stops hand traps, which are just Madolche's biggest weakness. This list is also not on Crossout Designator. We are choosing to side deck that for Go First specifically. Ever since Scythe has come in the meta, it's just been really hard to fit flexes that, like, just good flex spots like Designator that aren't designed to simply stop Artifact Scythe, because he is such a threat this format. I think that's one of the weaker things about Madolche this format is I don't feel like I can main Designator when I'm a big fan of it in this deck. But yeah, Called By is still really good at stopping hand traps. We have the Orange Light as well, and of course when we know we're going first and we don't have to worry about drawing dead Designators, we can side them in to stop powerful cards like Nibiru. Alright, we are only on 2 other traps in this deck besides Infinite Impermanence. We are on 2 Madolche Promenade. This is like Madolche's main trap. Again, if you don't have Prosperity, you can play like Madolche Knights if you wanted to. I'm on Promenade, and I'm on 2 of them because once you're set up, you can use a Promenade to like help set another Promenade off of your Salon, which is really good for the next turn to help break boards, or just another interrupt you can use on the following turn. 1 Promenade can be 2 Promenade with the help of Salon, which is very, very good. And this card is just one of the most powerful cards in your deck because it helps you negate like really powerful go second cards like Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler, Forbidden Droplets even, because it essentially is a hot red that gives you follow-up. Like, this card is so good. And yeah, this card is one of the reasons for Madolche's success in my opinion. Alright, on to the extra deck. Madolche's extra deck normally has a lot of extra room in it, and it's one of the reasons Prosperity is, again, really good in this deck, because you can just pretty much get a free activation because you have so many cards that aren't going to come up often. But the things you want to definitely be playing are the 3 Glass Souffle. I've been on 2 of this for a long time, but every now and then like a 3rd one will pop up. I almost never make the 3rd, but if you're going to run 3 of any Madolche Xyz, it's going to be Glass Souffle because she's like your main one. Then we are on 2 Tiramisu, one of Madolche's biggest power plays. It's such a crazy card. I can't believe it was even printed as long ago as it was. Like, I remember when it was printed, it didn't even feel like that absurd, but the more you go into modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And the more like not targeting becomes more important, dodging destruction. Like, this is a card that shuffles back 2 cards your opponent controls back to deck, doesn't target, and it you know, gets around anti-destruction effects. So this card is absolutely bonkers. And then we are on 2 Chocolate a la Mode. Sort of like your main Madolche combo is to get this with a pudding cess under it and just pop off. And then we are on 2 Sistart because you often end your board with Sistart, as she is one of your main end board pieces to protect your spells, and of course she is very hard to get rid of. Alright, so besides those like 9 Madolche monsters you're always pretty much running, what we're choosing to run is 1 Rafflesia, and this is because for going first I side Gravedigger as a way to again help with hand traps. If you open Magdalene and Salon, you can go for the Rafflesia play, which is very good at stopping an additional hand trap from your opponent and setting up a really good board. If you didn't get hand trapped, of course ending with Rafflesia that can use Gravedigger. It's a very good card. And then the other rank 4 I'm running is Gaga Cowboy, pretty much just for time. I mean, you could run anything here. You could run a Bish Dweller, but you're almost never making this spot, so I just wanted it in a situation where it was game 3 with like 20 seconds left on the clock. We can burn in main phase. Next up, we have 2 really interesting slots. We have the Fossil Warrior Skull Knight and the Psyframe Lord Omega. We are running this because Dogmatica Maximus sort of can just end your whole deck's career just by activating his effect. You send things to the graveyard and then suddenly Petting Cessor and Magdalene aren't starters. It's very rough, but if you're running these both have a way to get themselves out of the graveyard, so these are sort of the best Maximus targets you can play in Madolche. 1 Underworld Goddess, this is just for like decks we can't really deal with. Decks like Adignister who put up big towers. We don't really have an out to towers in this deck. So this Underworld Goddess sort of allows us, once we're already like swarming, as long as we're not locked into Madolche, we can out very big threats. And lastly, 1 Zeus. Normally I have space for a Gaia Charger in here. In this list I do not, because I think I put the 3rd Glass Souffle in. You could take out the Cowboy for Gaia Charger, which helps you make larger material Zeus, but this deck can still make Zeus with 4 materials even without Gaia Charger, because you can just make any Madolche Xyz and then overlay Chocolate a la Mode, which gives you the 4th material. So Zeus is very good for clearing boards in Madolches, but I'm going to be honest, I almost never make this card, but it's something you just sort of have to have as sort of a failsafe. Alright, and that is going to do it for this Madolche deck profile. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave down below what you think of Madolche this format, if you think it has like too large of a problem with Scythe to be competitive, or you think it can run like enough good flex spots to be competitive in this meta. I think Madolche is really good. I was loving it a lot at the end of the last format, playing it like 5 or 6 weeks in a row, because I was just having so much fun with the deck and all the crazy things it can do. It really is a good time, and I think it's a really strong deck. But yeah, this format is a little iffy for it in my opinion, but yeah, again, leave a like, subscribe. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.